Have you ever noticed how exhausting it can feel when your peace of mind seems to depend on what everyone else thinks? You have a feeling, but before trusting it, you ask someone else. You make a decision and then immediately check if they think it was the right one. Or you feel something deeply, but instead of listening to it, you look outside of yourself for confirmation that it's actually valid. And for caring and thoughtful people, this can become one of the quietest forms of emotional exhaustion. Because it doesn't always look obvious that you're looking outside of yourself for that reassurance on your thoughts. Sometimes it sounds like, "What do you think?" Other times it feels like, "I just need to check." And sometimes it becomes a habit of not fully trusting your own inner voice. But here's the truth. The more we hand our inner compass to everyone else, the further we drift away from ourselves. And today, I want to help you to come back home to your own voice. Hi, I'm Dave and welcome to my channel for caring and overwhelmed people who want to calm their minds, overcome self-doubt and build lasting self-esteem and resilience. And before we begin, I just want to remind you of something important. Your inner voice really matters. Your thoughts matter and your feelings matter too. And you deserve to build a relationship with yourself where your voice is heard too. Because learning to trust yourself a little more each day is one of the most powerful ways to build inner calm, self-esteem and emotional resilience. Now, very often reassurance seeking doesn't come from weakness. It comes from fear. A fear of getting it wrong. A fear of disappointing someone. Or often it's a fear of making a mistake, or the fear that our feelings aren't valid enough on their own. And for many of us, this pattern began a long time ago. Maybe we were criticised. Possibly our feelings were dismissed. Or maybe we learned to keep the peace rather than trust ourselves. And slowly, our mind learned this belief. Safety lives outside of me. And this is where the M in my Minecraft framework for mapping the mind becomes so important. Because we begin noticing, where do I stop trusting myself? And that awareness is where change begins and you're in a much better position to rebuild that faith in yourself. So, what's the hidden cost in this? Well, reassurance can feel comforting in the moment. It can feel like connection. It can feel like relief. But when it becomes a habit, it comes with a hidden cost. Because every time you override your own voice and replace it with someone else's, you subtly send yourself a message, my judgment is not enough. And over time that message becomes a belief. And then that belief becomes a pattern. Until eventually you don't even check in with yourself first anymore. You go straight to someone else. And this is where self-esteem very gradually begins to erode. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're no longer reinforcing your own inner authority. So this isn't about never asking for support. It's about changing the order. You first, then others if needed. And that one shift can change everything. And there's also something even deeper going on here. Because reassurance seeking is not really about other people. It's about your relationship with yourself. And if we don't learn to guide our own thinking, we begin relying on other people to do it for us. And this is how we start living by committee. It's like having an internal group chat where everyone gets a vote except for you. We check, we second guess, and then we look outward again. Until eventually we're no longer fully living from within. And at the same time your mind may have learned something important. That checking with others feels safer. So when uncertainty appears, your brain tries to remove it quickly by asking someone else. Not because you always need the answer, but because you want relief. And this is a powerful mindset shift to understand. You're not always seeking the truth. You're often seeking certainty. And certainty feels safe. But emotional growth begins when you learn to stay steady, even when certainty isn't there. And every time you tolerate uncertainty without abandoning yourself, you build emotional resilience. So next time you feel the urge to ask someone else what they think, I want you to try this 4-step process. And we'll call it the inner reassurance practice. And step 1, pause the pattern. Just notice it and the likely words or thoughts that are about to bound forward, and say to yourself, I'm about to seek reassurance, and that doesn't make me weak, it makes me human. No judgment, just self-awareness. Then step 2, feel before you fix. So instead of rushing outward, stay inward for a moment and ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Is it anxiety, uncertainty, fear of being wrong? Maybe it's the fear of being judged, because often we're not seeking answers, we're seeking relief from discomfort. And then we go on to step 3, validate before you verify. Now gently say to yourself, it makes sense that I feel this way, because validation doesn't mean you're right or wrong, it simply means that your experience is allowed. And this is where self-esteem begins to grow. And finally, step 4, anchor your inner voice. Ask yourself, if I trusted myself just a little more, what would I choose? Not perfectly, not fiercely, just a little more. And then affirm it gently. I can trust myself to figure this out. And this is where we begin to affirm and anchor healthier beliefs about ourselves. Not perfectly, but calmly and consistently. Now, in addition to that 4-step process I've just shared with you, here's a technique you can use to reinforce your new behavioural pattern called the delay the ask rule. And here's how it works. Before asking someone else, delay it by just 10 minutes. Give yourself space to think, to feel, and to reflect. And often you'll notice something surprising. You either already have your answer, or you feel calmer and clearer. And this is how self-trust grows, gently and calmly. And let's go a little deeper, because this isn't just about stopping a habit, it's about building something new, inner authority. And inner authority means you can listen to others without losing yourself. You can take advice without needing it to feel emotionally okay. And you can hear opinions without replacing your own. And this is where real self-confidence begins to grow. Not overconfidence and not forced confidence, but quiet, steady confidence. The kind that says, I'll listen, but I'll also think for myself. So next time you're unsure, ask, what do I think? What do I feel? What would I advise a friend to do? And then if you still want input, you can ask others. But now you're asking from a place of strength, not dependence. And that brings us on to the courage to be wrong. Part of trusting yourself is accepting that sometimes you might get it wrong. And that's okay, because self-trust is not built on always being right. It's built on knowing, even if I get this wrong, I can respond with kindness to myself. I can learn from it and move forward. And when you remove the fear of being wrong, you reduce the need to constantly check. So let's look at this in practice. Let's imagine you've had a difficult conversation at work and your mind immediately wants to ask, do you think I handled that badly? Instead, you pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what do I honestly feel? And maybe the answer is, I stayed calm, I was respectful. Then, what answer am I hoping they give me? And you realise, I want them to tell me I wasn't wrong. And that's the moment, because deep down, part of you already knows. Then you ask, what would it look like to listen to my own thoughts first? And maybe it's this, I handled it as best I could. And that's self-trust. Another example could be you send a message and don't get a reply. And your mind says, did I say something wrong? And the urge comes, should I check with someone? So instead, just pause. What do I actually know? I sent a message. Everything else is interpretation. And then ask, what would self-trust look like here? Maybe it's, I'm going to give this time. That's resilience. To really embed this into your mind, you can follow this daily practice. So at the end of each day, ask yourself, where did I trust myself today? Even in small ways. And just acknowledge it. Because what you acknowledge, you strengthen. And over time, your brain begins learning, I can rely on myself. So as we come to the end, I'd like to leave you with this. Where in your life have you been asking others to tell you what your own heart already knows? Where have you been outsourcing your peace? Because every time you pause and listen inward first, you strengthen something important. Self-trust. And over time, that becomes self-esteem. And that becomes resilience. And eventually, it becomes emotional freedom. You don't need to stop caring what people think. You're human. Connection matters. But little by little, you also need to learn to stay connected to yourself, because your voice matters too. So, if this video has helped you today, please let me know in the comments. Where in your life would you like to trust yourself more? And if you know someone who constantly second guesses themselves and looks outside for reassurance, please share this video with them. And if you'd like more support to calm your mind, build self-esteem and create lasting resilience, then stay with me on this journey. I'm Dave, and you've been watching Dave's Minecraft. Thank you for being here, and take good and kind care of yourself, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.